Hello friends, welcome to Coding Garden with CJ. Tonight's episode, Code Katas number 10. I did say, was it night before last night, that I wasn't going to do this? But I decided to stream. I am available, so I'm going to do it. If you're new to this stream, I stream pretty much every Wednesday. Times are going to be a little bit different. I haven't updated my official schedule yet, but time is going to be different because I'm in a different time zone now. But you can check out this GitHub repo, github.com/codinggarden/code-katas, and you can see all of the past episodes, katas that I've solved, and we'll see some from, this episode we're going to solve new ones. So these are a few that I've picked out. I'm only going to stream for about an hour tonight, so I only picked out 3, and then I'm going to pick a 4 queue when we get to that. But we're going to start with least difficult and gradually get a little bit more difficult. And hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. Hello, Tycho. Hello, Merchan. And Merchan, I actually did not, so last time I think I did 1 or 2 of the ones you suggested, maybe 1. But this time, I'm not feeling brave enough to do like the exponentials one just yet. So maybe next time. And maybe with a little bit of preparation too. Okay, but let's take a look at what we're going to do tonight. There's that one. So the very first one is a 7Q. It's called Find the Divisors. You're given a number, and you have to return an array with all the divisors of that number. There's a 6Q called Stop my straw, or Stop Spinning My Words. You're given a sentence, and you have to reverse any word that is longer than 5 characters. And then there's also Pete the Baker. You're given a recipe with ingredients that it requires, and then you're also given available, which is what you need to make that recipe. And we'll return if you have enough things available. Cool. And Flamingo, thanks for the like. Yeah, I don't have a Udemy course yet, but I do plan to make one eventually. Because there I would actually make money. Here I only make money from patrons, which I extremely appreciate, and also donations as well. Cool. Meritron, I definitely will attempt it at some point, just not tonight. And I'll try to do it without the hint too. Okay, first one, find the divisors. I am going to bring this down locally, and we'll solve it locally. So let's create a new file. Call it find divisors.js. Throw that in there, and then I'll also bring in the tests. Let's just do a console.log of the 2, and I'll go ahead and start up Quokka. So right now our function is returning undefined. But we need to return an array or tell if that number is prime. So the description says, create a function called divisors. It takes in an integer greater than 1 and returns an array with all of the integer's divisors, except for 1 and the number itself. So here's what we need to do. We need to iterate from 2 up to let's call this number, up to the number -1. Because this says we need to take into account all of its divisors except for 1 and the number itself. So we don't care about 1, so we're going to start at 2. We don't care about the number itself, so we're going to go up to number -1. And while we're iterating, we're basically going to check, is the current value, is number divisible by the current value that we're iterating up to? And if it is, then we need to push into result array. And so before we start that, we are going to need a place to store these results. So a place to store results. And we'll push into the results array. If it's not, we won't do anything. And then we need to return is prime if they're if it wasn't divisible by anything. So basically we can check right before we return. So if result array is empty, return is prime. Otherwise, return the result array. Cool. Michael Miller says, my man bun is very kata worthy. Thank you very much. I definitely was going for like a samurai look when I did this, so cool. This is our basic algorithm. We might be able to solve this. I think we could probably solve this with a reduce. But let's solve it with a for loop first. So a place to store the results, we're just going to say results is an array. And then we need to iterate from 2 up to the number -1. So we're going to create a for loop. We'll say let I equal 2 while I is less than or equal to, well, we can say while I is less than number, because that would be less than or equal to number -1. I plus plus. And then we'll do these things inside of the for loop. Yeah, the audio might actually be clicking. Let me fix that. Sorry about that. Yeah, I see it in my audio bar. Just a second. I will be right back. So I'm back, but my software looks like it's still clicking. It looks like it's jumping every few seconds. Is it still happening? Let me know in the chat. This is very unfortunate. I might actually resort to a different microphone, but that's okay if I do that. It's fine? John says it's fine? There's no clicking? Anybody else? It's like a heartbeat. I can literally see like a heartbeat on my my audio monitor. Here's what I'm gonna do. Well, actually, yeah, let's do this. Right back. Not very noticeable. I mean, I can see it though. I don't like it. All right, it's gonna go away. Watch your ears. Hello, hello. Okay, it's probably not as good a quality, but it is not clicking. All right. I think that's better. Let me know, and let me know if it's worse, because then it might be better to hear the clicking. But regardless, let's solve this problem. I'll keep an eye on the chat. Okay, so have our for loop. We're going from 2 up until the number, and this will be number -1 because we're doing less than. So when I equals the number, we're going to jump out of the for loop. And now we need to check this. Is the number divisible by the current value? So we're going to say if number mod I is equal to 0. So if the number is divisible by I, then we're going to push it into the result array. So right here, we'll say results.push I, and that should do it. So it's going to iterate. Anytime it finds something divisible, it'll push into that array. And then at the end, we can check. So if the result array is empty, so we'll say if results.length is 0, then we need to return number is a prime. So we're going to return number is prime. Not is a prime, is prime. Otherwise, we're just going to return results. And that should do it. So let's see. Right now we're getting 3 and 5, 2, 3, 4, and 6, and 13 is prime. Very cool. Let's try it out. If this works, I want to try and do it with a reduce. Sample tests. That worked. Let's do an attempt. Okay, so it passed all of the harder tests too. Cool. So let's try to do this same problem with a reduce. Oh no, just a second. Microphone almost fell. There we go. Okay. Same problem, we will do it with a reduce. So the thing we're reducing to is this array. So this results array is going to be our accumulator. And basically we need an array of numbers that we can reduce over. So, but before we do that, here's what I'm going to do. Or am I? Yeah. Ooh, so Merchan is very mathematically inclined, but he's saying you can have the amount of checks by considering the fact that if D is a divisor, then so is number divided by D. So we're saying if I is a divisor, then number divided by the result of number divided by I is also a divisor, is what you're saying. Yeah, and this kata specifically isn't checking for performance, but that might be one thing we do if we're worried about performance, because instead of going all the way up to the number, we could calculate it when we calculate I. I see what you're saying, though. And then once we've calculated that, we only have to go up to number divided by 2. Is that right? Cool. And Mert, hello. Welcome to the stream. I see. So so Merchan is saying if we go that route, then there's a little more logic we'd have to add into it. Up to this. Okay, that makes sense. Up to the square root of the number. Off-topic question from Luis. Can you teach me how to use an npm package in a Vue project? Can't send the npm address here. If you join the Discord, you can definitely ask a question in there. We'd be happy to help out. Typically, you can do like an npm install and then like import it in, but let me give you the Discord link. Coding.garden/Discord. If you go to this URL, it will redirect to a survey. Fill out the short survey, and then you can actually join the Discord. There are a few different help channels, and I would be happy to help you in there. Cool, check that out. Okay, so I'm not gonna go the mathy route because I do want to attempt to do this with a reduce, but it is possible. Okay, so I want to use a reduce, but the thing to think about is we need an array to iterate over to create the reduce. So let's do this. We've done something like this in the past. We could do like an array dot from. If we pass it an object and say length is number -1. Okay, so here, let's do it. Let's try to do it with this before we try to do it with a reduce. So we'll have our results. We'll have our array from. An array from can accept an array-like object. So basically, we're just going to give it an object that has a length property. And then it also calls a function on every single element, so we get access to its specific index. So if we think about this, the index is going to start at 0 and go all the way up to number -1. So what if we checked for I plus 2? Because then we would start at 2 and then go all the way up to number. let's try this. So actually, so if we just log I plus 2, then that, and let's only check it with like, we'll call divisors with 9. If we log I plus 2, we get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but really we want to do number minus 2. Cool. So if we do that, then we get, if we do I plus 2, we get all of the things that we want to check. So 2 all the way up to the number minus 1. Okay, so we can now take this logic and put it in here, but instead we're going to check for I plus 2. So let's say value is I plus 2. We'll check for value, and we'll push value. So this is doing exactly the same thing as before, but instead of using a for loop, we're using like this array.from thing. And now if we check, it should still work. It still works. Cool. So we've adjusted it to use array.from. I'm thinking though, if we want to reduce, we could actually, because the thing about a reduce is it needs an array. Let's see what happens if I do this. What if we just do an array.from? Will that give us an empty array? Oh, that's a pro feature. Array is that, and let's just log the array. Yeah, so it is giving us an array with a bunch of undefined values in it. That should be okay, because now we can reduce it and use the index instead. Okay, so let's do that. So if we do this and then say reduce, we're going to be trying to reduce to this results array. And we'll have the nothing because it's undefined, and then the index itself. So then here is where we can do that logic that we had here. And we're going to push into results and then return results on each iteration, and results will start off as an empty array. Let's take a quick stretch. Whew. Got a new water bottle. Pretty excited about that. Okay, so now if we just say results equals that, should do exactly the same thing. Let's see. And it still works. So we get 3 and 5, 2, 3, 4, and 6, and 13 is prime. We could shorten this even more. So let's just try to return this. So hey, Amy, welcome to the stream. We could do this. So our accumulator is accumulating up to an array. The issue, though, is the one case where the array is empty, we actually need to return 13 as prime. So we could do the check inside of the reduce. We could say if I is equal to number minus 3 and results.length is equal to 0, then we need to return number as prime. Otherwise, we need to return the results. And this is like our very last case. So inside of the reduce, we're checking to see if we have actually reached the end. And if we have and there are no results, we return number is prime. So that's a thing. I don't know how I feel about this. Like this solution with the for loop seems a bit more readable. This is essentially doing the same thing, but just with the reduce instead. Don't know. All right, I'm going to submit this one. And we'll move on to the next one. Let's see. Well, let's see. Will it work? Sample tests. Those passed. Let's try more tests. Okay. Now let's submit our final. Yay! Okay, let's see what other people did. Interesting. So they only iterate up to the number divided by 2. Why does that work? Oh, and Merchan is asking to handle is prime when returning. The issue though is an array is not a falsy value. So one thing. And if I wanted to check it, I need to store it because right here is where I need to check the length. So I couldn't really just do or is prime because in the case of this, the empty array isn't a falsy value. So yeah, that's what we get. And the issue with that is like really I want to check like if length then return this whole thing. So, but really that then we couldn't just do it all in one statement. We'd have to say like results is this, and then after that we could return if results.length, then results. Otherwise, we return number plus is prime. So that would do it, but we get away from having a one-liner. I kind of do like this more though because having that inside of the reduce makes it feel a little bit weird. Yeah, but then you're saying the ternary is a little unreadable. A lot of different ways to do it. I don't know. This is super. I'm curious how they were only like if you only iterate up to the number divided by 2. Oh. Because otherwise, anything greater than 2 won't divide evenly. Anything greater than the number divided by 2 won't divide evenly. Is that right? That sounds right. Okay. So they just did, yeah, the basic iterate up and push. I'm curious to see like a more mathy solution. Oh. And so yeah, they're doing I think what you were mentioning, Merchan. So they're pushing in a and the number divided by a. So you have both of your divisors. And if it's not the same, push it in. But the issue with that is you now have an array with the numbers out of order because you're like pushing in larger numbers. So they fixed that at the end by just sorting the array. We could probably make it even more performant by like instead of pushing, you put it into the array in the right sorted position. But yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, let's move on. That was fun. Question from Amy. How was the move? Are you tired? It was all right. It was pretty tiring to pack up. I'm doing okay though. I'm currently looking for like a more permanent place to live, but nobody got back to me today, so I'm gonna stream. My plan was to like go look at apartments, but it didn't happen. Hopefully it'll happen tomorrow because I've been messaging some real estate people. All right, on to the next one. Stop spinning my words. So let's bring it down locally. Spin words. We'll start up. Quack. I guess I am tired. I'm yawning. I'm in a different time. So I think I had so much lack of sleep coming out here that I was able to adjust to the time change pretty quickly. Like I got to sleep way earlier because now I'm 2 hours ahead. So now my bedtime is 2 hours before it used to be. And had I not lacked sleep, then I would have been up later. But I've been going to bed like really early. Like last night I just like passed out while I was basically sitting up in bed. Okay, so stop spinning my words. Let's do it. Right now, this is returning undefined, so we need to fix it. So write a function that takes in a string of one or more words and returns the same string, but with all 5 or more letter words reversed. So we are going to get some sort of input, and we need to look at that input, every word in that string, and if that word is longer than 5 characters, reverse it. So here's what we'll do. We need to split the input on spaces. We then need to iterate over the words. And let's say we have a place to store the result. We'll do this manually, and then we'll do it like with a map or something like that. So a place to store the result, we're going to split the input into spaces. We're going to iterate over the words, and instead of input, let's call this like sentence. We're going to iterate over the words after splitting it, and we'll say if the word is longer than 5, reverse it. And push it into the result array. Else, just push it into the result array. And then after we've done our iterating, we want to join the result array back together on spaces. And actually, let's do this. Let's not, a place to store the result, even that could just be a string. So let's say reverse it and add it to the result. We don't necessarily have to push it into an array. Else, just add it to the result. And then lastly, we will return the result. Okay, so first, a place to store the result. I'm going to try to do this with a string. So our resulting string starts off as an empty string. We're then going to split the sentence into spaces. So I'll say words will be sentence.split, and I'm going to split that on space. So if we log this, words, we're now, when we pass in this sentence, we do get an array that has like each word inside of it. So that's good. So now if we iterate over the words, I'm just going to do a for loop. Let I equal 0 while I is less than words. Sorry, words.length I plus plus. And if the word is longer than 5, reverse it and add it to the result. So let's create a variable, say word is words at I. And if word.length is greater than 5, then we need to reverse it and add it to the result. Mirchan is asking what happened to my keyboard. I left it back in Colorado. So I've moved to New York. Right now I'm just using my MacBook keyboard. I do plan on getting a new mechanical keyboard. I really do like the tactile and the clackiness of it. But yeah, I'll get one soon probably. Add it to the result. Else, just add it to the result. So I'll say result equals result plus a space. Actually, we could just do plus equals a space plus the word. And then lastly, we will return result. Right now, we are not appending we're not reversing the word. So we need to figure out how to reverse it. Let's just write a separate function for reversing a string. Function reverse string takes in some input. We could do this manually. A lot of times the way you'll see people do this is you'll take the string, you'll turn it into an array, then use the built-in reverse method, and then join it back together on the empty string. Okay, the internet seems like it just went down, but it seems like it's back up. Hey Ran, how you doing? Yeah, and Merchan suggested I can get rid of the else and just add it either way. So yeah, we could do that. We could say if word length is greater than 5, word equals reverse string, and then otherwise, and then just append the word, like no matter what. But now we need to make that a let variable. Rohan said, I refreshed 3 times. Sorry about that. The internet seemed to go down for a few seconds where I was. Okay, so now it looks like it might be working, but I think one issue is we are putting a space at the beginning. So let's trim the final result. Take a quick stretch. And let's try this on Code Wars. One thing I need to make sure of is it word length greater than 5, or is it word length greater than or equal to 5? Let's try it. Sample tests. Reverse string is not defined. No, it's not, because I defined it there. Let's put it. Try it. There we go. Let's try it with more tests. Just kidding. There is still one more. Yeah, so it needs, where we messed up is the word there. So it actually does need to be greater than or equal to 5. So that needs to be there. Attempt. There we go. Let's do it with higher order methods. So John says, I miss for of. We probably could use a for of. Let's see. Does for of grab each value inside of the array? Can we do that? Can we say for let word of words? Yeah, that still works. Because the for of operator will grab each value inside of this array. Cool, I like that. Let's also do it with just higher order methods though. So here's what I'm thinking. We can do a split, a map, and a join. Let's try it. So we could do it all in one go. Let's return sentence.split, and then we want to map that. And we're going to get the individual word. And basically, we can do this. So if word length is greater than 5, we're just going to return the reverse word. Otherwise, we'll return the word. So do that, and then we can just join it all together on a space. So we split it, we map it, and then we join it. We map it, any word longer, greater than or equal to 5 in length, we reverse, otherwise we just return the word. So this creates a new array, and then we just join that array right back together. So that's nice. Can we think of any other solutions? We could use a reduce also. Because if you think about it, like this result right here is kind of like our accumulator. So let's do this with a reduce. So if we say we want to return this dot reduce, our result accumulator will be there and we'll get access to each word. And we want to start the accumulator as an empty string. And then we need to do this inside of the accumulator. So we need to say that and then return result. So this reduces the array, the array of individual words into the result of words that are split. And this, I guess, technically is like one less iteration than this solution, because this maps it, which needs to iterate over it, and then joining it iterates over it all over again. But by doing a reduce and building up this string, we're like adding the spaces as we go instead of having to do it afterward. Intense clips, hello, welcome to the stream. So that's fun. Okay. Can anyone think of any other way to do this? We could technically look at it one character at a time and then find a word and reverse it. That would be super interesting. I don't know if I want to take the time to write that though. Cool. So I'm happy with this. I think I'll submit this reduce one. That one's nice. Oh, I do need to keep my reverse string function. Sample test, still work. Final submission. We did it! Cool. Yep, so they did a split, a map, and a join, but instead of creating like a reverse string function, they kind of just did that inline, which is okay. They used a regular expression. So this regular expression matches any word that is greater than length 5. And so any word that is greater than length 5 is going to get run through this reverse function. That's pretty cool. Yeah, split, map, and a join. Split, map, and a join. Did anyone use a reduce? So many people join. I feel like JavaScript developers like know that join exists, so they tend to overuse it, I think. Cool. Because I guess like I showed, we could do it without the join, right? If we kind of like essentially join it as we go with the space. Yep, join, join, join. I guess if they're doing the regular expression replace, this one just keeps the existing spaces, so that's pretty cool. I like that. Okay, on to the next one, and then I'm going to choose a for queue to do. But this next one will be pretty interesting. We're going to explore different ways of working with objects. Okay, Pete likes to bake some cakes. He has some recipes and ingredients. Unfortunately, he is not good in maths. Can you help him find out how many cakes he could bake considering his recipes? So write a function cakes, which takes in the recipe object. So the recipe object will have what is required for the recipe. So like 500 grams of flour, 200 grams of sugar, 1 egg. And then the second object will be the things that you have available. So you're going to get an object which is basically like things that are in your pantry. And you need to say, if he can bake a cake, how many cakes can he bake given these available ingredients? Otherwise, you just return 0, can't bake any cakes with those ingredients. So we're going to have to look at both objects. We're going to have to do some maths. Let's figure it out. Yeah, and Merchon is saying join doesn't need the trim. That's why they use it, I think. Yeah, we could also add special logic, though. So going back to our previous one, we could say if we could take into account the index. If I equals 0, then just add the word. Otherwise, add a space with the word, and then we don't need to trim it. So that would do it without a trim. The only thing is we're now checking the index every single time. I don't know. And actually, let me leave the previous one that I had. So now the only place we're using trim, well, no, we're not using trim at all. So I don't know. Okay, let's do this. Bake some cakes. That'll be fun. Pete the Baker is what this one's called. Do that. We have some example tests. Do a console.log. Ooh, I'm yawning. I'll check my phone real quick. Okay, let's start up Kaka. Right now, we are getting undefined. We can get rid of this. Basically, we expect that this one should return 2, and this one should return 0. Right now, they're both returning undefined. Okay, so here's what we need to do. We need to look at all of the properties in the recipe. So we need to look at each property, see how much it takes, and for each property, we need to look in the, okay, this is gonna be trickier than I thought. So for each property, we need to look in the available and see how many of these are actually in available. Okay. But the tricky thing is, let's say we have enough flour to make like 10 cakes, but we only have enough eggs to make 1 cake. Well, then the maximum is only 1. So we'll have to keep track of that too. But I think that's a place to start. Basically, we need to iterate over the properties in the recipe and check to see how many of that we can create in available. Okay, so we'll say iterate over properties in recipe, or let's call it ingredients. We'll call it what they are in the recipe. For each one, we need to check if the ingredient is in available, because if it's not in available, then we can immediately return false. If not, return 0, because we don't have any of that ingredient. If it is, then we need to take, we need to see how many times can the needed amount divide into the available amount. So if it is, I guess we could do like the remainder of the division. So find, that is some ugly pseudocode. Minimum of available amounts divided by the required amounts. Yeah, so basically we need to keep track of the how many of each ingredient would we be able to make, and then just take the minimum of that, because that would be the maximum if we only have that much of a given ingredient. That is some ugly pseudocode. Come on. I think it's okay, right? If it is, find the number of, really we want to say find remainder of division dividing the available by the needed. And then really we need a place to store the number of cakes we can bake with each ingredient. And then after finding the remainder of the division, we will put it in, we'll store how many cakes we can bake with that ingredient. Oh, Merchan said, I didn't mean yours, I meant mine. Your comments are beautiful. Thanks, Merchan. I wasn't offended. Okay, if it is, find the remainder of the division. Okay, and then we will store the amount for this ingredient in the result. Not really, that should do it. And then the last thing we need to do is iterate over the result and return the lowest amount. So this is Merchan's pseudocode. So basically, the lowest number of cakes that can be made for any given ingredient is the maximum that we can make because we don't have enough to make more than just that. Hope that makes sense. I feel like I know what I'm going to code, but I'm having trouble like writing it all out as pseudocode. Let's give it a try though. So a place to store the number of cakes we can bake with each ingredient. I mean, honestly though, this could just be an array of numbers, and then we can return the minimum value in this array. Yeah, I think we'll do that. Or, no, we can let's just have a variable. And we overwrite it if the number that we can make is less than that number. Okay. So, yeah, so let's have a variable called, we'll make it a let variable, number cakes. Initially, it's 0. So now we need to iterate over the ingredients in the recipe. We could use a for ingredient in recipe. For now, if we just log the ingredient, is that those are the properties. So in recipe, we get flour, sugar, and eggs, and then we get apples, flour, sugar, milk. Okay, so ingredient here is going to be the ingredient that we get from the recipe. Cool. So check if the ingredient is available. So we need to say if available has that given ingredient, then we're going to do this. Else, we can just immediately return 0 because we have none of the ingredient that we need. So we're just going to return, you can make 0 cakes. Okay, so if it is, find the remainder of the division dividing by available by what is needed. So needed, so we'll say amount needed is going to be the recipe at that ingredient. So this is going to grab the specific amount that's needed out of that object. And then, well, this is really amount per cake, right? Right, amount per cake. And then we need to see how many amount per cakes fit into what is available. So we can say I'm like tripping myself up. Oh, okay, so that's what Meritron meant initially. You just keep track of an array and then take the minimum of that. But yeah, I think keeping track of this one single variable should be easy enough because then we can just return that. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to say amount available is available at that ingredient. And then the possible num of cakes is going to be amount available mod amount per cake. And really we want to take math. Wait, that's the remainder of the division. So how many times can we, no, not the remainder of the division. We just want to divide it. And we'll take the floor of that. So drop the decimal. So how many cakes can we make given the amount we need per cake and the amount we have available? So this is the possible number of cakes. Let's just log that possible number of cakes. 265, cool. And here we'll say, I guess this is where it could be tricky. Well, let's just say this. If not num cakes, so if we have not set a value on num cakes yet, then num cakes is just going to be possible num cakes. Else, if possible num cakes is less than the number of cakes, then num cakes is just going to be possible num cakes. Hey Rodrigo, welcome to the stream. Hello, hello. So num cakes equals possible num cakes. Oh, let's do this. If this or that, then we can just do it in one statement. So initially, like on the first time around, num cakes isn't defined, so we're just going to set it as the first possible number of cakes. And that's our comment there. Okay, and then last thing we need to do is just return the number of cakes. Num cakes, right? Right? Cool, so that worked for this one. We got 2 and 2 and 0 and 0. I think one thing we could potentially do right here is immediately return 0 if num cakes is 0. Because we're not exactly checking that. Like, what if we have some available, but not enough to even make one cake? Then we could immediately return 0. Let's do that. If num cakes, because then we just stop. If num cakes equals 0, return 0. Done. Okay, let's give it a try. Yeah, so and Meritron says you could start num cakes as infinity. That's one thing I thought about, but I don't like that. Because, I mean, if we started at infinity, then every number is going to be less than that, so we would override it. But I think I'm okay with this. Let's see what happens if I submit it. Sample tests. It passed. Let's do a larger attempt. And those all passed too. Cool. Let's play around with it. So let's actually try that. So if we just set this equal to, is it number.infinity or just infinity? Oh, good call, Tycho. Tycho is mentioning we need more cake emojis for readability. Is it, yeah, so how do I do infinity in JavaScript? Is it just infinity? Yeah, it's just infinity. Infinity. And then I don't have to check that. I can just say if the possible num cakes is less than num cakes, and it always will be because infinity is the maximum possible thing. So this should still work. Yeah, it does. Curious, could we write this with a reduce? Could we write this in some other way? I'm curious, where can I put the Unicode emoji? I guess I could put the Unicode emojis as comments. Is that the right one? The birthday cake? Yeah. So possible num cakes can be that. Num cakes is that. There. I think that's good. Let's try to write this with a reduce. Why not? Okay. So we want to return, and what we can do is do like object.keys of the recipe and reduce that. So I'm going to do object.keys of recipe, reduce that. We're going to reduce this down to the number of cakes. And we're going to get each ingredient inside of this reduce. Num cakes is going to start off as infinity. And then we're going to do pretty much this inside of the reduce. So Merchant is saying the only time possible will be 0 is if available doesn't exist. So line 38 is not necessary. I'm thinking not necessarily. Like, what if our recipe needs like 6 eggs, but the available is only 5 eggs? Then technically that would give us 0. This is what I'm trying to account for. I don't know if like the sample tests don't test for that, but then the larger tests might test for that. Like technically I could remove that and it's always going to be less than, so we would still return 0 anyways. It's just like this is like a slight what you call it, a slight short circuit, because we would stop calculating. The one issue with the reduce though is there's no way to short circuit it. We're just going to keep returning 0. So we're just going to return yeah, you can get rid of that. And we're going to return num cakes. That return. Let me kill Quokka real quick. Stop all. Start on current file. And this broke it, so we're getting 0 instead of 2. So we're doing object.keys of recipe. Let's make sure that ingredient is what we expect it to be. Okay. If available at ingredient, do this. Oh, let's get rid of, we shouldn't need that anymore either. So we're starting num cakes off at infinity, and here we'll say if possible num cakes is less than num cakes equals that. Oh, actually we could just do this, return possible num cakes. And if it wasn't available, if that ingredient wasn't available, return 0. Undefined. Oh, I guess we still, because it's a reduce, we actually do need to always return num cakes. So let's do this. So if num cakes and, okay, it's breaking. Why is it breaking? Ivan, yeah, so I am using this thing called Quokka. That's the thing that is automatically running my code and logging the results there. Right now, for whatever reason, I'm getting 0, and I should be getting 2. So I need to fix that. Let's log. Oh, and I guess before I forget, Tycho did say you can use Unicode in variable names. I don't think you can. I feel like I've tried that before. Let's try it though. Let's do, instead of cake, can we put the emoji in there? Does this work? What? No, it says invalid character. Okay, I was about to say that'd be awesome. Yeah, and Rodrigo asked, are you doing some Master Chef cake builder app? Basically, we're given a recipe for cakes and available ingredients, like in a pantry or something like that, and then returning how many cakes can we bake given those ingredients. And I'm trying to do it with a reduce. We solved it before with just like a basic for in loop, but I'm having some issues. So if numcakes is a thing, is infinity a truthy statement? It should be, right? Yeah, so infinity is truthy. So if numcakes still has a value and the available has that given ingredient, then we do our calculations and we're going to be returning the number of cakes that we can make. If that ingredient was not available, we just return 0, and then it'll just constantly return 0 after that. Rodrigo says, I'm getting used to strange names people get to plugins and frameworks. Yeah, like there's a lot of weird names out there for libraries and things like that. Why is this breaking? Let's log numcakes each time. Oh. Let's take a quick stretch. Oh, because I see why. Earlier when Merchan was asking how that might work, I actually changed the input so that it would break. Or was this 2? Yeah, so this actually should be 2. And then we do get 2. Okay, it's not broken. Cool. So I'm going to submit this one. I do like that this is a reduce. And, well, one thing about this, though, is we're just, like, returning 0 many, many different times. Whereas, like, in the for in version, we're immediately returning 0 if we ever come across it. And Merchan says, in Python, you can use Unicode characters in, like, variable names and identifiers. That's pretty cool. I'll submit this reduce one. Let's see. Sample tests. All right, we will do an attempt. It worked. Okay, final submission. John says, you didn't have to prove me wrong that badly. It wasn't that I was proving you wrong. It was that when I tried to demonstrate for you, I broke my own code. Well, I didn't break my own code. I made it so that I thought we were looking for 2 when really we were looking for 0. I didn't mean didn't mean anything. Okay. Well, that's fun. So they are doing a reduce. They're grabbing the minimum value of either dividing it or the value 0 itself. Cool. My solution's like very similar. The only difference is I'm just a little more verbose, right? So instead of doing recipe brackets ingredient, I'm doing amount per cake, amount available. This is like finding the min of the 2, right? Yeah, so Flamingo asked what we're doing. We just finished up this Pete the Baker, and I think I'm going to call it there. Yeah, I've been streaming for a little over an hour. Got to catch a train. I got to get to sleep. I did say I was going to do one more, but I think I'm going to call it there. Ooh, interesting. Oh, this is super cool. So they're doing math.min with the rest operator. Or sorry, the rest operator. So for everything in the recipe, they're mapping that to what how many they could make given what's available. And then they're finding the minimum of all of that by spreading that array into math.min. That's pretty cool. I like that. Very interesting. Okay, that's it for tonight. I will push my code up to GitHub. I'll put a link in the description so you can check it out. And I don't know the next time I'm going to stream, but watch my channel, turn on notifications, and maybe you'll be surprised when I do go live next. Hey Juan, greetings from Colombia. Thanks for joining. You're right at the end. We actually are leaving, but appreciate everyone for stopping in. Thanks for participating in the chat. And if you are on the Discord, I'll try to let you know a little bit more in advance when I do decide to go live. Might not go live tomorrow because I'm going potentially to be looking at places to live, but I may. I don't know for sure. So yeah, check out my YouTube channel. I will put or attempt to put any upcoming streams if they are going to happen. Ivan asks, am I going to VidCon? Not sure what that is. And I'm not, because I don't know what it is, but let's see. Multi-genre online video conference held in Southern California. I'm not. That'd be pretty cool, but I'm not going. Awesome. All right, I'm going to call it there. Got to catch a train. Got to go to bed. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And I'll see you next time. Here's this.